You can have what you dream. You can have what you dream.
How is everybody today? How you doing, Big Rick?
As bueno. I got 18 holes in on the course today. I got my vitamin D, and I shot under 100. So good day.
Okay, Tiger. How you doing, Melvin?
Better, but I've been taking the time. I deleted all my social media, and I've been reading the Bible a lot more, praying a lot more, listening to a lot more gospel music. So that's been an interesting journey. Almost got abducted a few days ago, so that was very scary.
What?
The police were right there, and they looked me in my eyes, and they put their heads down and drove off while it happened. So that even hurt more than the actual situation. That the people in our communities that are supposed to protect us would turn a blind eye to that type of stuff. But other than that, I'm still breathing.
I'm glad you still breathing. That's good. That's what's good. How you doing, Auntie Faye?
Oh, good. I'm seeing all y'all here. We got Sylvia, Melvin, Rick. And it's just good to see everybody here. I'm right there with Melvin about like just going back to my spiritual practices, and I've been like going back to the foundations of what I know and how I know to uplift my spirit. So I'm going to my spiritual word. And so waking up every morning, and I feel so much smarter. I'm really grasping the instructions in the book. So just taking that space. I'm also looking at how to adult. You know, it took me 40 years to figure out how to be an adult. So just like, okay, basically, I have to do these specific things every day. Like I have to eat, I have to walk myself, get some exercise. I have to you know, it's good to take a bath and shower and brush my teeth because I like these things. They're cute. You know, I'm trying to keep them. And so things like that, it's like I'm learning like these are things, pay my bills. Like I sat down and paid my bills, right? Like, oh, I feel like I'm adulting. And then these are instructions that's actually written in the spiritual word, like don't be slothful in these areas, right? So if I use these as like as an instruction manual of how to live my life and be more compassionate and learn how to forgive folks. These are just things that I'm using and applying to my life, and it's really helping me. And I feel really mature as a person and spiritually. So and I think about Sylvia often when I'm doing things, because I know Sylvia really designs her day and puts time aside. And I'm like, you know, sometimes I say, what would Sylvia do? You know, so I love that I'm taking the time to do those things. And then the other phase is just like, okay, this is my checklist. If I have to pivot in my time frame, like with you, Melvin, I wanted to send something earlier today, and I was like, I need to also go get lunch. Yes, I wanted to send something to Melvin by noon, but was that really as important than me eating? No, it wasn't more important, because Melvin, when you got it, it was okay, right? It was like, you got it a little later. But if I hadn't eaten, then my blood pressure, my blood sugar would have went up. I would have got fatigue and couldn't handle the rest of the day. So I know this is a long check-in, but basically all I'm saying is that I'm learning how to put myself as priority first, and then figuring out how to get things done. And when I'm running behind schedule, just say I'm still focused on that. I haven't forgotten about you. I just need to go do something else right now. And that is a courtesy. That's the communication that folks need. So, and I'm learning how to do that, and I think it's working. I feel good about myself. How did you feel about that, Melvin, when I responded to you and kept you updated, right? You're on mute.
Two on it.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Say that one for.
Like when I was checking in with you, let you know that I was running a little bit behind schedule, but you knew that I was still intending to
Oh
communicate.
yeah. I didn't take none of that stuff personal, and I take pride in my own team. I take mental health very seriously when I work with my creative crew. So I let them know like, do what you got to do. We rather have you alive than have you meeting deadlines.
Yeah. So basically, yeah. So what basically is what we're saying is just like the noise that you create in your head. Actually, the noise that you create in your head is actually worse than what's really going on in the reality. Because I would have in the past, I was like, Melvin's waiting on this, and I'm not getting this to him. So yeah. So that's that. I just my complete mental health.
We all sometimes did great. Patata.
How
Okay,
you doing,
so I'll try to pay
Sylvia?
attention.
It's been a minute. You're on mute.
Hi, I
Hey,
feel okay today. That's good.
that is good. As
Anything else, Sylvia?
anything else I got?
Sylvia's like, I'm a one-liner.
I find that
Well, what a few
communication
words.
is not my strong suit. When I have this one fellow that's working with me on the Pasadena Environmental Advocates, and he's consistent about contacting me regularly. He's consistent about always having full sentences in his emails, just really friendly, and I'm just so impressed with that ability. I write back, thank you. It's like pathetic. Anyway,
Just a quick question. Has any of you ever seen The Office? Just quick poll.
My mom loved it.
It just reminded me of something like in an episode where Kevin, a big guy in the office, he would like shorten all his sentences like as much as possible just to be like, like what was it? So many examples, but he did the whole episode. He was just responding in as few words as possible, and it confused everybody so much.
Yeah,
I loved it, but
got it.
you should check that out. So.
I think it was because I was baby number 6 and I was only given a split second to speak. So you had to be concise.
That's fair.
I will say something to when I want something recaptured or to recap something on our calls. I intentionally go to Sylvia because I know she's not going to take up a lot of time to explain what needs to happen. I'm like, Sylvia, can you share just basically what we're doing now? And Sylvia be like, what I gather is this. Period. So yes.
Yeah.
We're all different that way.
Yeah. As for my check-in, I'm just say I'm a little sad today. I'm gonna have to give up my cat. It looks like to a friend, so that makes me pretty sad. He's been really she has been very, don't want to misgender. She's been very helpful to my mental health, and I just am realizing that it's probably gonna be difficult in the future having a cat, like with my relationship, going back to LA for a bit. It's sad, but it's complicated. So, I mean, I'm a big animal person, so yeah, feel good. So I was just saying how much I love animals, but we could stick on to what it takes to love animals in the world, I guess, and talk about the environment and climate change. And when we're looking into urban communities, whether it's LA, where 3 of you are at, minus Rick and me. Rick's up in Fresno. I'm up in New York City. East Coast, East Side, whatever. And they're all different urban environments, but they all share a lot in common. A lot of people, pollution, etc., and inequality. So I was thinking, like, when we're seeing all these changes in the urban environment and just in the climate, what are good steps cities could take to better handle climate change? And I did want to see like what everyone's thinking about that, so we could just get general sense of what people see as positive steps to make.
Well, I'll take the first lead and going back and I'll be learning more because I'm actually, like I said, I joined this cohort, Partners Advancing Climate Equity, and it's focusing on frontline communities and Black Indigenous people of color. So I'll learn more. But one of the things that is very important, I think, if we can just start with reducing plastics. We're part of that ban plastics as a community here in organization. It's a community that's been started in Pasadena. It's called Ban Single Use Plastics. I mean, we can't really ban all the plastics, but like stuff like straws and stuff like that,
Like these.
yeah, like what you're doing. So like basically, like I really invested in, and I'm loving this thing. Sylvia knows how much I love this. Like this, I got it in purple. I got something I knew I was gonna love, and it's my baby. And also, it really just helps me stay healthy because I'm like, I'm gonna use this thing as like a toy, and I'm drinking. I only put water. I like water. I put water in this one. This is my water one, and then I'm gonna step back and go get something else. I have actually been doing pretty good with this thing. I've been really, I know I just stepped away, but I'm proud of myself for really taking the time to invest. So I have my coffee. I love to get coffee every morning. So I take this and get coffee. And then when they ask about a straw, girls got her swag. So I have my straws. So I'm really excited about these things. So those are the things that those are my small steps, and I can keep it clean with this. These are the cleanest straw stuff. So I just wanted to say, like, I'm really working. Those are my small steps, and that's what I'm doing as an individual, and then educating folks on the other aspects. Like I gave up my car for both economic and climate reasons. So I reduced the carbon imprint that I put on the community and on the planet. So by doing that, I'm either carpooling, walking, which is helping me with exercise and staying more fit. And so I'm just loving my little steps that I've decided to take. And I feel good about it because I've read what needs to happen. So by reading things that we can do as individuals, when I made the decision, I didn't have a stigma on it. There was no stigma about, oh, I don't have a car. I'm like, no, I reduced my carbon imprint.
Is there like any specific like books or like even podcasts that you'd recommend listening to?
Well, I'm following Ron Fenley is one of them, and he'll talk about those things. But
Yeah, we will.
Anthony Hemingway is Permaculture City. Yes, we can talk about that, gardening and the Permaculture City, and I'll popcorn it over to Sylvia to talk about these things too. And also, Emergent Strategies. I don't have that book in front of me, but if you give me a minute, I'll go back and get it, which is all about how we can do exactly what we're doing right now, is build communities and find ways to, did we lose Alex? Okay, so find ways to build our own climate equity groups, such as this, and then educate and bring people that's not normally into the conversation more into the conversation. So you may not do a lot of big actions, but the small actions is what leads to big impacts. If everybody took small actions, that could actually lead to big impacts, right? That's what they talk about, habits and everything. Like if you're going to the gym and you do your push-ups every day, or do some weight training, eventually you become stronger. So I'm thinking eventually if everybody does something, learn a little bit, and we all take the steps, this planet has a chance. These communities our communities have a chance of being more regenerative, because it's not sustainability anymore. We're not trying to sustain what we're doing. We're trying to regenerate. Isn't that right, Sylvia? And I'm popcorning over to Sylvia, our climate.
Thanks. Demand that all new buildings have no gas lines, all electric. That's something you can do in your city. You can make sure that gets passed. You just basically quoted Howard Zinn. He said, small acts, when multiplied by millions of people, can transform the world. I focus on water because it's after breathing. If you don't drink water, you're going to die. So water, and especially in Southern California, is super important. And there's lots of ways we can improve our water security, including water capture during storms, so that we have more water underground in the aquifers, so that when we draw water out to drink it later, it's there instead of gone. And there's lots of other ways to save water, like using gray water instead of, what do they call it? Why are we peeing onto drinking water? Explain that to me.
Pardon me?
Right?
Pardon me? Can
The
you?
water in the toilet is from a pipe that we use also for drinking water. We should be using gray water for all the toilets. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
That's just one little tiny thing. There's so many examples of saving
and
water.
also, I actually went to a friend's house and he doesn't flush often. And he's like, yeah, I don't flush because I'm trying to conserve water. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, we got to figure something else out because it don't smell good in that bathroom. I tell you that. It smells like you don't flush often too.
What about people using the drain, like in the shower?
Oh, I thought you were going to say put a bucket in the shower and collect the water while you're waiting for the hot water, and then use that bucket full of water to flush the toilet. That works too.
Girl, we're gonna have to hang out in your house and see how you do all the green hacks. You just take is that what you do, Sylvia? Do you put a bucket in the shower and flush with that? Is that what you
I did, but then my husband bought this nifty new toilet flushing handle that's got 2 sizes, and it saves a lot of water. So haven't been as worried about it. The old toilet that had the old handle and everything was like huge amount of gallons for one flush. It was ridiculous. So I was using a bucket for sure.
we have, and there's, if you want to upgrade, there are new toilets that have conservative ways of using conservative water.
Right. Have you seen the one where you wash your hands above the tank, and then that washing of your hands with the soap, all that water goes into the tank, and so that is gray water by the time it flushes the toilet the next time.
Well, we need to see a picture. Maybe you can share a video or a link.
Sure,
to that.
I can find a picture.
Yeah, we'll get that going later. Anybody else have some ideas? Rick, Alex, you want to ask how they're doing it? Or Melvin, you want?
Yeah. So I've been learning about a lot of different ways about sustainability in other countries. One of the main things for me is just like the waste, because that's the main thing coming off our planet. We got so much trash and there's nowhere to go, and we're just burning it, and it's not helping the ozone layer. So in my songbook, I have a bunch of random ideas about how I would change the world with kind of like mailbox style recycle bins. That way people could go by and pick them up, the homeless people that depend on those for their lives.
We could build that with Compassionate Arts. That could be a Compassionate Arts project, because I was thinking, you know how you seen those library, those library boxes where they rent a book. So I was thinking about doing something around that and building like Compassionate Arts projects as a project. So maybe that's something that we can. That's a great idea. We should add that into one of our cohort projects this year.
I have a really interesting thing that I learned about recently. So it's in Copenhagen. They have like the world's like cleanest energy like renewable energy center or something, and it's just this huge building, but it also is like very interactive. It kind of goes up like that at an angle. It's like a triangle shaped building. So it has the world's largest rock climbing wall, tallest now, on it attached to the building. It has you could hike up the building, and you could even ski down the building.
That's dope.
And it only uses like green technology, and it's so clean. So they turned this industrial looking, kind of rugged looking building into one of the most fun places to be, like in any city you could think of. And I love that idea. It's like that's how you make environmentalism really cool. It becomes a site that people want to go to. There's some really good videos on it too that you should see.
We'll share some of these, and maybe because we're gonna be talking about this stuff all the time. So these are things we can queue up and bring into the conversation. Even if not today, maybe next week. That reminded me of something you said though. Oh my gosh, Alex, you mentioned something that was very interesting. Oh, just we were talking about green buildings, right? And just being things that are like very stimulating. There's a piece of art at Arlington. I was trying to find a picture, but I'll find it in another, maybe later. But we talked about what if trees gave off Wi-Fi? Wouldn't that be great? But too bad it just gives off the oxygen that we breathe. So that's the quote. It's a beautiful quote, and it's on the post at the Arlington Gardens that came out of our compassionate conversations when Black and Brown go green. So
talk to Michelle also about putting like a banner around a tree telling you how much carbon that particular tree has in it, stored in it, because each tree is different.
Yeah. So what is cool is this. I was looking at art and Alex was looking at art, and I've always thought this kind of art that is interesting, or technology, or just to conceptualize this, because we live in cities. Can you see that piece?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's like something I would have built on Minecraft.
I don't even know about Minecraft, but I don't understand that reference, but it sounds.
So you were like one of the greenest people on Minecraft, and that's pretty dope.
Hey, yeah.
Green thumb taken to the.
Let's look at this concept. What is it? What are we seeing on this? Anybody want to share their ideas and thoughts about this piece? And Alex, can you lead with the conversation?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is like a conceptual rendering of a high-rise building, and it's obviously a lot different than like the typical high-rise buildings you may see in Manhattan or in downtown LA or Chicago or wherever. It's a lot different. It's got trees everywhere on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like it's a fairly luxurious apartment, so I don't know how exclusive it would be to live there, but it's increasing the green footprint of a city regardless. And the way I see it, I think about, okay, you're making the city greener, you're bringing cleaner air to the city through trees, you're beautifying the city with trees, and you're still creating jobs. That building goes up and you're making jobs, and it's not like the construction workers are all like really rich people. So it's building to a city's economy in what to me seems like a pretty healthy way.
Those trees are going to have landscapers too, so that's even
yeah.
If you were to conceptualize.
And gardeners probably too could come and work on those.
Yeah.
It would be interesting if they put some of those trees like gardens, so that way they could take fruit, vegetables from here, and probably even put like organic store in that building somewhere somehow.
Mm-hmm.
That would be great. That would help with food deserts. Now imagine if these are like in public housing. What if this was in public housing areas where we have more trees and fruit trees in those areas? That would help with food deserts. Exactly what you were saying, in urban gardens. So I think that's good. Anybody else? Rick, you want to share your ideas on this?
Yeah, you guys are a tough act to follow, man. I mean, you guys are the experts when it comes to this stuff. I do have an idea too. I don't know the mechanics of this, but I've heard it said before, and I think it's a great idea. I think what we should do is instead of cutting trees down, we should start using hemp as, to make paper. Use hemp to replace a lot of the wood products, since, it's, the trees are, they're producing more oxygen than the hemp. So, but hemp can be used to make paper. So I think that would be huge one. If we could just leave the trees alone, that would be a good. Other than that, everything else you guys said was right on point.
But
I like that. Also, I just want to go back to the hemp products, and and people are now investing in hemp. Like they said, we should have been investing in cotton, right? So that also can bring economic growth. If you started really investing in that product more. And there's clothes. One of my favorite outfits was made out of hemp, and back in the day when I was kids. So, yeah, that's a great idea. Anybody taking notes? We're geniuses on this call.
I wanted to push you guys just with ideas on one thing. So you were saying Faye, about like with public housing, and imagine building that in public housing. Now, notoriously, a lot of the reason public housing kind of in many instances failed was due to lack of funding from the federal government. Like America's, for better or worse, and it has its positives and its drawbacks, of course, a capitalist country, and has functioned under limited government principles for a long time in many ways, although not exclusively. But when you cut funding to something like public housing, you're not going to be able to fund through those government programs all that building of like these green communities in the projects. And how do you think we could do about that in another way? Because inevitably you can't always rely on the government to be consistently funding at least how much needs there are for that, and those green gardens could go into disrepair if you just rely on that. How may we work on business or building privatizing
and making profiting off of green technology. I think people need to see how they can profit off of green technology and privatize these things, just like any other industry that the government no longer could subsidize or wanted to invest in. I mean, you privatize the prisons, that made money, so let's privatize green technology and see how we can make money in that. It's just that simple. You just once people can see the financial benefits, whatever side of the coin you're on. Most people really, the American dream is to have economic growth and stability and security. That is the American dream, if we're just talking about that. And it's a universal dream for us to want to be all around the world, want to just be able to eat and drink and sleep in a healthy environment. I think that's a very minimum.
So that kind of goes to this idea, and I'd just like to hear some other thoughts on it. But you don't necessarily need to change a lot of the rules or founding ideas of like American economic principles to go green. You could still go green within a system that uses capitalism and some social programs.
So with me, when I think of public housing, I think the main thing they lack is community. You have a shelter, but there's not community. So I know like a lot of homeless people, they get housed and they end up back on the streets because it's not really a lifestyle for them to indulge in. So when I think of, I don't know if you guys are familiar with co-ops.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So if I was to design a housing community, not just housing, but a housing community, it would have opportunities, job opportunities for these people within that community, like gardens, artistic, everything, like everything that interests the natural human being, art, English, math, science. I would incorporate into that housing community. That way, those people they'll have more of a reason to live instead of just be housed. They'll have something to indulge in, something that they're proud to wake up to. I wish I had my book with me. I don't have it on me, but I have so many ideas. I don't know, like, if you guys are familiar with Kanye West and some of his architectural design and stuff, but we're kind of on the same level, just without the politics. I don't do the politics, but
that's another. There's something you just brought into that. So yeah, bring your book next time to the meeting. We can find out some of your great ideas, and we would love for you to share. And one of our goals is to help implement these great ideas. That's why we're coming together, so that these are not just, they don't just live in the ether. It's just ideas. Let's see if we can kind of focus on a community. Do that.
I just sent something in our chat, but if you look at it, it will show you something that Chicago actually did with their like public and affordable housing.
Oh,
What they did was they decided, hey, we're not just going to have strictly these buildings like monoliths come up. Like there was, Cabrini Green or Robert Taylor homes out there, and they became hotbeds of crime and of families that got broken apart due to the crime bill in part as well, and other just policies and lack of funding. So this time, instead of just building these kind of segregated monoliths, they're putting libraries in their new buildings. And that's a way to really build a community instead of just cut off a community.
right.
We'll share that in a second. I'm waiting for it to load. I want to share the photo from Sylvia. She's actually found that the toilet with the washable hands, the washing hands toilet. So we're gonna share that piece and then bring the other image up so you guys see it. So that's you see it.
Oh, yeah.
Here.
I've seen those, but not in person.
I think that's cool. You think how I don't think that would be too much to implement. That wouldn't be too hard to implement, and we could definitely encourage that. But here's your piece now. I wanna share the article that you were talking about, and with the Chicago.
Affordable housing.
Yeah, but I do remember also that conversation, and also going back to Octavia Butler. She was talking about just libraries. I mean, she literally found all her resources in public libraries, did all her research. And again, she rode the bus, and she was very much an environmentalist. If you ever want to check it out. But here we go. So Chicago finds a way to improve public housing, libraries. Other cities have combined books and subsidized housing, but the outgoing mayor, Rahm Emanuel, has embraced the concept with 3 striking new projects. This was during Obama. I remember this because I was like, I remember this. This was a long time ago, I thought.
This was pretty recently that they like started really moving forward with it.
Okay.
But like I mean, I think I did hear about it like maybe a few years ago too.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look at this design too. It's, if anyone's familiar with like like public housing on the West Coast has been pretty rough too. But the structural design of them in like the Great Lakes, whether it's like Chicago or Detroit or the East Coast, like New York, they're just these towering, like kind of depressing looking buildings.
New York, oh my gosh. Yeah, they just look, it was brown or gray, and that was it. Concrete jungles is what they're known as. Concrete jungles. Yeah. So yeah, and I've seen, but when I moved out here, and I'm like, there's palm trees and cut lawns, like it's a totally different. That don't look like no project to me. I could get lost and end up in the wrong place, thinking I'm chilling. So yeah, it's a different vibe out here. But yeah, back.
So yeah, I just think of the difference though between that design there and the designs of something like what Cabrini Green was in Chicago. And I mean, that's personal to me because, I'm very like familiar with Cabrini, whether like, I used to play basketball a lot at this Suey Park, right across the street from Cabrini, and all the buildings got torn down, aside from some of the low rises. And it became kind of this image of the city and towards the residents there where it was like, everything that went wrong with public housing. So it's like, it's not something you necessarily give up on. You try and reinvent and come up with ways you could maybe mix that with other parts of like, maybe some private sector with some public housing, and just focus on learning from the mistakes. And I think if you could do that with the libraries, you could probably also find ways to do that with going green. That's
Great, great. So
yeah. Let's see. So yeah, and then also, like, you know, we were talking also about these ideas of like urban gardens essentially, and how they could really, you know, lively up an environment, lively up a city, provide food and resources and just green to a city. There were a lot of them like under the train where I used to live too. There were urban gardens, and there's this um, guy doing a lot of great work out in LA. Um, he's also a fashion designer, and he's the gangster gardener, Ron Finley. And I thought we show some. Well, Faye thought it, not me. This was all her idea. Uh, so uh, I'll let you take some lead here.
oh, just I'm gonna just show the video and then we can go from there. But yeah, it's Ron is an icon. I'm sure Sylvia might even have more to share about Ron. And I'm trying to play the video. Things are really slow today, technology. So forgive me. We are in Mercury retrograde for all the hippies that are out there. And I've been having this video queued up for about 20 minutes just to make sure that it would play. And now, because
He also did a TED Talk or two, which
yes,
is how I think he came to fame.
um,
I took a class with him in welding
Mm.
in 2010 or 2011.
I'm gonna stop
And
here and wait.
when I found out he had done a TED Talk, I called my husband because we were all big fans of TED Talks. And so he sat at home and he watched the TED Talk. And then he was like, I want to meet this guy. So he came over to my class and he met Ron. It's pretty fun.
So do you know why he's called the gangster gardener?
Sure. He says it's gangster to grow food because it's like growing money, because you don't have to spend the money on the food if you just grew it. Seeds are super cheap. He says, I don't know why he calls that gangster, but anyway, he does.
Yeah, I mean, I also, just like if anybody else like has a thought on that, like, you know, I feel there's a lot of people who wouldn't understand the positive connotation with like the word gangster and only see it as a negative. So like I think that could be like a bit of a language barrier for some. If anybody has thoughts on that.
I mean, for me, nothing about a gangster. Gangster has to be a hustler too. You gotta do what you gotta do to survive out here. You gotta take the little and flip it for the most. So I get what you mean when you get buying seeds, probably like 16 cents each, and then selling the whole vegetable for probably like $6. I think that's pretty gangster too, if you ask me.
I feel that. No, I feel that. It's like a word doesn't gotta have only one strict definition to it, and like it's like, oh, you know, it's a gangster, so that's a blood, that's a crip, that's MS-13. Like it doesn't have to mean like some criminal, even prohibition era gangster. It's like kind of taking the idea of what those like gangsters were doing and hustling, but doing it for something good.
Right.
Yeah, I consider myself. I actually named myself the gangster hippie. I've been called the gangster hippie forever. I never really just associated gangster to like gang mentality or gang activity because I feel like it's like the hustler, you know, it's like what you have to do. That's gangster. Like you doing it, you pushing through the odds, you know. No one gave you nothing. You got to just keep pushing through. So I feel like that's coming up. You know, that's the come up. How can you come up from like the hardest times, or you know, make something out of nothing? Making something out of nothing is a gangster mentality.
Yeah, and it's good to define like different ideas people may have of these words, because someone may see like the gangster gardener, like somebody watching at home, a Karen or someone, we don't know who's watching, and they may be kind of intimidated when they hear the word gangster. So sometimes it's good to clarify, and you know, through that maybe you get more people on the same page. So,
Right.
Yeah.
so,
When let's say you have money, you're playing Jeopardy and you're on TV and they say you want to go for it and you just go for it, go for the whole thing, that's gangster. You just keep it all on the line. Like you could have walked away with $30,000, but you gangster, so you going for it. So like Felicia said, making nothing out of something, whatever. Something out of nothing. Yeah, that's it. Oh, back to my I didn't get a chance to you guys keep forgetting about me today. I'm gonna give my 5 cents. Melvin, I'm gonna give my 5 cents, Felicia, like what you were saying, if like you guys were asking, I think Alex asked about the government programs, if they're not, what can we do if the government's not able? What they can do is, like privatizing, but also giving some kind of tax break incentive to encourage people to go ahead and do those kind of, things locally, so there should be some kind of special tax break or something.
Actually, there is, and we're gonna bring my friend Rex on maybe later this week. I was actually gonna bring him on for this call, but we connected. I think I forgot to remind him. But Citizen Climate Lobby is also, that's one of the things that they're initiatives that they're pushing to the government, is to give tax incentives for those who are reducing their carbon imprint. I think that's basically, or maybe even tax those who are using more. So and then there's a rebate. The money that comes from that tax, that money is coming from that tax later. Those who have a low carbon imprint get a rebate. So you pay into it, and then we get the money to come back. And so the people that probably benefit will be folks coming from more marginalized communities and frontline communities. That's what they intend. So he'll be able to come on at some point on one of the calls this month, and we can examine that conversation and see what that looks like. But it's called the Citizen Climate Lobby, CCL.
Yeah.
All right, we got Ron Finley, honoring Black History environmentalists.
There's
2 options in the world, good or bad. I just was choosing the bad at the moment.
We don't have enough money to pay our rent. The devil is a lie.
I don't have no money, I'm broke. My daddy broke, like no money.
South Central Los Angeles, home of the drive-through and the drive-by.
I went to prison for 30 years.
Well, it's like there's no peace in the land.
If you put beauty into a place that generally doesn't have it, that's a game changer.
I'm Ron Finley, I'm the gangster gardener. I planted my Eden in my front yard. When the city came and told me it was illegal, we got the law changed. We did it in LA, and we can do it all over the world. This is a movie about potential, that you don't have to accept things the way they are, that you have the power to change them. A garden can change people's lives. It can change the structure of a community.
Can You Dig This is all about bringing life to your community. It's about planting something, about planting a seed and saying, we want to make change.
We want this movie to open in every city around the world, and you have the power to make that happen.
It's my hope that with this film we can inspire even more people to get their hands in the dirt. Here's how it works. Go to canyoudigthisfilm.com and click on the screenings tab. A map of all the screenings taking place in your area will pop up. If you don't see a screening in your area, click on the Request a Screening button. By doing so, you become a captain of the film, and Gather will give you the tools to get the word out to as many people as possible. Once 75 people have signed up, the screening will officially take place.
No matter where you are, what city, what state, what county, you can bring this movie to your hometown. You can watch the paradigm shift happen before your eyes. You will be planting the seed.
So I think what we could honestly do as a team is take that action. That's one of the actions we can kind of take an action to organize a screening as well as and there's drive-in movies. We could kind of do it in a
Oh,
car
that's
in a
dope.
location
Yes.
and organize it. So why don't we look at as an action of compassion arts, because we're talking about how do you use art to bring awareness to social and environmental justice. That film right there is a prime example, and we, as you said, we could be the captains of our ship and help that happen. So I think that's something we can do as a team. Moving forward, when black and brown go green, how you feel about that, team?
I like it.
Yeah.
I like that.
So
I love that. That gave me so much hope, man. Y'all don't even know.
I think the one thing that would probably that stood out to me is how he got the law changed and how he just didn't like give in and sit down. I think that's something we can all take. It's like if we want change, we got to make change.
Mm-hmm.
And just to let you know, I'm always talking to civic engagement is part of our mission as well. In bringing, helping for civic engagement. I've talked to my assembly member, Chris Holden. He's been very responsive to when black and brown go green. Council member Tyrone Hampton. I've also talked to many folks in LA. I've met Karen Bass. And so Representative Karen Bass, let me put it right, so and everybody's interested, and she's in South LA. So that's your area, Melvin. So, go over to Coco, and that's her. That's an organization she started. Coco, where you?
Oh yeah.
Did Lorraine have something to say? Did you want to add to it?
Yeah, I was telling him that he knows where Coco is. It's Community Coalition over there on Vermont.
Yeah, so it's like you know a lot about that area. So yeah, and they're actually having a discussion. She has virtual conversations, but she's one representative that is very accessible to the community, and the fact that she didn't want to lose that accessibility, she started this organization so that her people can be represented, and that whatever's happening in the community, direct communication comes right back to her. So I admire that, and we can have impact. Artists have impact. We have a lot of impact, and a lot of, and if you talk to Kira, she can talk about how she's had some impacted laws too during for women's rights and reproductive rights, and we can talk to her about that. Sylvia, did you want to share something? What were you sharing? Yes. You're muted.
Have you all heard of the donut?
No.
So the donut is a social and planetary boundaries, and some of the things that we're doing globally are out of bounds, out of planetary bounds. So it's a visualization of all the problems and all the social things that we can do, all in one big circle. So I should get it and bring it up and show you, huh?
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Very visual. Yeah, let me find it.
This has been very inspiring, a very inspiring call, and I appreciate.
I feel like with the art, right? You were saying with the art, whether it's like a painting, or drawing or song or just photography too. I think that there's so much you could see, like just from like so much insight you could get to like what's going on in a community impacted by climate change or whatever it is, just through that art.
Okay, so tell us what's going on. It's the image on my end is not as sharp, but I'm sure it's just probably from my end. But can you explain that?
The parts that are in the red are out of bounds, and the donut is green, and that's all in bounds. So when you see ozone layer depletion is currently has white behind it instead of red. So that indicates that the ozone layer depletion is no longer out of bounds. And air pollution globally is also no longer out of bounds. But what is out of bounds? Climate change is out of bounds. Biodiversity loss is out of bounds. I mean, the planet is not going to be able to handle this for very long. Land conversion is out of bounds, and
Mhm.
nitrogen and phosphorus loading is out of bounds. And then the social ones are they're in the green, and then the part that goes into the middle shows you, oh, I see, shortfall. Okay.
Mm.
Actually, I've never really studied this, but I thought it was so ingenious to put everything on one circle for all the global problems.
Right.
And land conversion, like what would be a good example of the land conversion?
I'm guessing that it would be taking something natural and changing it into something urban, or maybe even just taking something natural and turning it into a monoculture of agriculture. So, for example, biodiversity exists in nature, but when you strip the land and you put in, say, corn, all the biodiversity is lost, and it doesn't support life really.
So it's like in the remember like all the huge fires in the Amazon as a result of like the deforestation there, because
Yeah, like that.
they were converting to farms a lot, right?
Yeah, that's conversion. There you go.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know.
So this is worth studying, and I think it'd be a cool thing to make into art, because it's got a circle, and a circle is one of the main design shapes, and it'd be fun to work with.
Let's put that. So we want to, and what we'll be doing later this year, taking small teams out to expand murals. Right now we have social justice murals up. The social justice murals will be expanded to environmental justice murals, so that we can educate the public through art and do the workshops around that. So that's something that we will be doing. Small teams with our ambassador cohorts and experts in environmental justice to have the conversations and design with lead artists. And it was particularly, these murals would go up in frontline communities, Black, Indigenous people of color. I also work with I would like to work in Pasadena, of course, but then there's a community that I work with called Kumba Village, and I work with them down in Ricky Byers Beckwith is someone that we already talked about. We're going to do some work down there, Ricky Byers, with Kumba Village. We've gone to the parks and had conversations on food justice and explaining how to plant from seeds, like lemon seeds, how to open up a lemon seed and put it in a napkin. And we had these conversations with the youth. And so, and another thing that we didn't talk about, which I thought you were going to talk about, which is with the food waste, is composting. So I'm part of a community co-op, a composting co-op that you can take your food scraps and put it over into a compost and then regenerate the soil that way, so that anything that you don't consume in your body, you can give back to the earth, which actually has, like, for me, has a very spiritual connotation to it, to a moment, like I'm giving back. So I know that it came from the earth and it goes back into the earth. What doesn't stay with me sustain me. And it's like an offering. So we can practice that.
You brought up compost, so now I have to mention the first United States human composting, and I'm not talking human waste, I'm talking human bodies. Human body composting now is open and has started, and that's, I think that's in Washington State.
When you're talking about, because we were talking, you weren't on the call last week. I think we were talking about what we want to do at our last day, our final wish, and I was like, a tree is planted right here. I'm a tree planted. That could be my quote, whatever. I see a beautiful purple tree that's planted with a little plaque, and I think cemeteries are just a waste of land, and I don't feel the need for us to be having cemeteries. But what are we gonna do with all those bodies? That will be like, people like, she's sacrilegious, this is a burial site. I'm like, let's dig up all the bodies and turn them into trees, and we can turn it into a forest and get rid of these little tombstones, and you can put a little plaque down. It's less space and it has more oxygen, and then that's probably not the most popular. And then we don't have to pay for caskets.
I do like the spiritual argument of that too, because it's like you're growing life from death. which is, I mean, that's beautiful.
I
So
love everything about it when I first saw it.
yeah.
And the casket, I think funeral homes would hate me. All these people just like to talk because there's so much money in death.
Mm.
You know, if the embalming, and that's toxic substance that's going in the body, and we don't even see that body anymore. You just embalming that body just so that they look good for like that day of presentation. Like I know I'm so morbid right now, you know, but
And then cremation takes a lot of fossil fuel.
yeah. So let's just put everybody in trees. No force.
Hey, do you really want to? I mean, I know people have gone to war against big oil, but do you really want to go to war against big death? Like,
why not?
Yeah.
That's
I
gonna
mean,
be like
I'm just. I'm for it.
I know, like we just talked about.
I just want to know.
We just talked about the pipeline on a
Yeah.
sacred land. They want to drill a pipeline, and I'm like, well, if they were trying to turn everything into trees, I understand, but so that's like, I know we have. Everybody has their own version of what's right. You know, that's the problem, right? What's the best? What's right for the land? What's right? I don't know.
I don't think so. I think the donut shows that the planet itself has limitations. And if you go too far in one direction, you will kill the planet.
So if
that's
we're,
not
so like, just speaking on killing the planet though, then like, you know, there's still unfortunately a lot of people that are climate change deniers, right? And even people who craft and make policy. How are we supposed to like go about that and be able to then push through like things, policy to save the world? What's the best way to argue in favor of why we need to do this for someone that's just going to keep saying it's not real, it's not real?
well, the Citizens Climate Lobby is actually pretty much bipartisan. So they figured out a way to get the fossil fuel to be reduced and have both Republicans and Democrats on board. So I would say if you are interested in doing policy, I would say join Citizens Climate Lobby.
And that's actually what I was working with Rex to help get more PLCs into the conversation and get into those calls. So I will love if we all, as a part of When Black and Brown Go Green, join Citizen Climate Lobby. And it's a national organization, so you can find a local chapter wherever you are.
We've already partnered with them last February.
Yeah, I know I am, but I'm talking about the others that are that are on the call. Yes, I've partnered with them, and you can talk. That was a wonderful experience, and I've been talking about them all the time. So when Rex comes on the call, you'll understand more about why I think this is a good organization, and I definitely support the goals.
When Rex is on the conversation, I'll pull up my photographs from last February.
I would love. We need to put those photos on our website too. So whenever you can, please share, because we had a lot of fun. We even had a white horse with us at one point. Did you ever get the picture of the white horse that was marching with us? Because okay, so this is let me go go back. We were in the parade, and of course, you know I love Octavia Butler. I made a big with Kira. We made a huge head. It's about 4 feet. It's the size of a huge yoga ball. And that was the mode of the head for Octavia Butler, who I see as an environmentalist and iconic figure from Pasadena, Altadena area. Her writings talk about climate justice. Please take a look, even just like not even the published books, but just articles that she's written in her speeches. She's talked about that. Anyway, so to pay honor to her for the Black History. A year ago, we're actually in February. So a year ago, we marched, we came together in unison, allies such as Sylvia and members of My Tribe Rise, myself, Compassionate Arts, Latinos, they were all involved. And we marched in a Black History Parade together, all of us, just to bring awareness to climate change. And one of the things that we said is, all that you touch, you change. The only lasting truth is change. Climate change is real. And we was marching down Fair Oaks And we walked a long ways, and we still, and at one point there was a white horse that had joined us and was walking with us and decided to march with us. So that was a pretty cool experience. You want anything else you want to add to that experience, Sylvia?
I love street theater, and we pretended that we were in one of her novels. And in the novel, people are climate refugees, for example, from Pasadena, because it's too hot and dry and there's no water left. And they were all walking north to get somewhere safe, and they had to carry their water with them. So we had water bottles that said things like, keep away, this is my water, and stuff like that. And we had to have, everybody had, they were carrying their stuff, their water bottles and their food, and
Some
had
people
wagons.
had masks on. Yeah, remember some people had their face covered up with bandanas and masks. They had their face covered.
Huh.
In February of 2020.
I don't remember that. That's interesting. I remember everyone had bandanas, but I don't remember what they were for.
They were to cover up because the air pollution was so bad at the time.
Oh, okay.
So, and in the book, highly recommend this month. If you haven't read this book, this month, recommended reading for everybody who have not read it, Parable of the Sower. So then you'll understand why I'm like drinking the Kool-Aid so hard. And please, just do me a favor. Who's laughing?
That's my mom.
You know, okay, Lorraine, you gotta be like, you're laughing off camera. You're like, yes. Lorraine, please come and share.
I'm in agreement.
Come, she's reading the book because I'm always talking about this book. Lorraine.
Yes. So I'm in the part right now where Keith's bodies had to be identified. Woo.
Yeah, that's the brother.
Yep.
Go ahead and I'll be right back. I'm gonna go get something, but please share a little bit of recap of your experience where you are now in the book, and you know, this is a plug for her. So yes, it's Black History Month in case y'all didn't know. So we do have Black environmentalists in our community. We have been leading, so we'll continue to bring awareness to these people. And in every call, we will talk about Octavia Butler because she is the person that inspired me to go into this. So yes.
Well, I started reading the book a while back because somebody thought of me when they seen it, and they gave it to me as a Christmas gift. And they gave me that quote. So there's the quote there of, all that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. And then there's a thank you note from Molly Reisman, who I partnered with the Housing Justice Podcast with. And since I started reading the book, I started to see a lot of similarities in how we choose to learn from books, the power of books, and how we can sustain even in times when life seems unbearable. It's amazing to see how there's this deeply embedded Christian piece of it, right? That holds services for the community. There's a wall that is put up to keep people out and keep people in. There's the children who are learning how to shoot and how to protect the wall. There's the family who's learning how to breed rabbits to make sure the community continues to eat. It's just like a survival guide. Like, it predicted some stuff that in the worst place is LA. Like,
it takes place here. It literally, she's talking about the 210 walking up to the 5. I mean, she's literally gave us the map, what we're gonna have to do to get out of here. So I believe that she time traveled and said, okay, I gotta write as much as I can. I put in a fiction novel and then give all the clues. And if the people have the good sense to read this book and get the clues, then they'll know how to get out of this. I mean, it even talks about having a government ruler who is a dictator. Everything in the book is just so wait. So, and it takes place in
24. Yeah, 24. Yeah.
2024. That's in 4 years from now. So if you guys don't read this book before then, okay, 3 years, and now I know what year I'm in. Yeah, thank you. Sylvia's like, you're you in a new year. So, I just want to say, like, I've been following I follow people that talk about Octavia Butler. I go to the lecture. There was a lecture series. Did I go with you, Sylvia? Were we at the Huntington? Yes, we went to the Huntington and at the lecture series, and because she's also again seen as an environmentalist, and her papers have been memorialized and preserved at the Huntington. So she's archived there, and that's at the Huntington Library. And Sylvia can actually talk more about that too. But I have this book, which is a graphic novel. So if you guys are interested in graphic novels, you can also find it this way, and it's pretty cool. The illustrations are here.
Wow.
So this is another version of it, and they just took notes from her, but it's kind of cool. It's alliteration is different, and I have it autographed, of course. And I follow the artist who created that book. And if you follow Parable of the Sower, there's just a lot of conversation on Instagram, hashtag Parable of the Sower. You'll find a lot of just interesting conversations about sustainability and about the environment itself, and especially around POCs. So I think that may be a good hashtag for you guys to follow as well if you're interested in environmental justice. Is there anything else anybody would like to share? We have a few minutes left in this call, but this has been a very
tomorrow morning is a Pasadena Environmental Advocates Eco Breakfast at 7 a.m. online, and Saturday morning at 10:30, I'm hosting a Shakespeare Authorship Roundtable. We'll be talking about Mary Sidney, the Countess of Pembroke, from 1550 to 1600 or something. Anyway, but she's a character in a new novel series about. It's not that new. The parable, no, not parable. The discovery of witches, which is a very popular TV show and book series, and she's a character in that. So we've got a lot of people coming because they like that book and that TV series. That'll be interesting. Those are the two things I'm doing in the next 24, 48 hours.
I wanted to ask Rick a question, actually, because I know Rick's felt a little ignored tonight. But yeah, seriously though, Rick, how, you've lived in LA and Fresno, and have you noticed much of a difference in how people view the climate change in relationship to the environment?
I've only been here a year in Fresno. Seems like they care a little more because of, it's farmland out here. So people are a little more, I guess, aware, conscious, a little more conscious. And plus they're not used to smog as, like LA. So I think in LA, you just you just hustle, bustle, you're kind of used to it. But here people are a lot more environmentally aware because of, like I said, there's a lot of crops out here. I mean, this is a big area for farming. So I think people are a lot more in touch with the earth because there's more earth here. LA is the concrete jungle. It's just nothing but concrete. So here, Fresno, people are a lot more savvy and, a lot more, careful about littering and just things like that, basic things. So, yeah.
And what do you say, I'm not sure. Do you know any farmers in the area?
I talked with one a couple of months ago, but, we didn't have a conversation about his work, but I kind of keep to myself out here.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's interesting thing too. It's weird to think, but even sometimes I've always told myself, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna live in a city, right? I'm gonna live right in the city for environmental reasons, because that way I could take public transit more. That way, I could walk to work or bike to work as opposed to just have to drive everywhere. Which, I mean, you were saying, Faye, you got rid of your car. And so it's interesting. Sometimes you just gotta realize, maybe these cities are like bigger polluters just because of the amount of energy in there. But if people know how to like live in the city, they could live in the city while benefiting outside the city, making the world a greener and less polluted place.
Still, I agree. Thank you. We just need to learn how to coexist in our planet and have be in right relations with the planet. It shouldn't be so hard, but a lot of times we're not even in right relations with ourselves. So this is something that I think is very interesting, and I want to congratulate Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, but I think they actually didn't they receive the award? I think at this point, did they receive it, or is it just a nomination at this point? Okay, so it's a nomination, but anybody want to speak on that? Black Lives Matter, the movement being nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Any thoughts? As an organization that was not nominated.
I personally think it's great to see, just because so much work was put in over years, really. Really since Trayvon Martin, in my opinion.
That's when it started. You actually have the exact date when it started. That was the cause for it. Yeah.
But like in the past year, there was so much that happened, and there was such like a broad sweeping movement that you had protests erupting, whether all over the world, in Europe, in Japan, and all over the US. And I don't know, to me it's like a Nobel Peace Prize is such a big deal, and for an organization like Black Lives Matter, and to actually show that Black Lives Matter, something like a Nobel Prize kind of seems like it's a big step in the right direction for acknowledgement, just being acknowledged.
I believe it will correct the stigma that some people have had around Black Lives Matter too. And that would go back to the next one. That would segue to the other group, because they put Black Lives Matter in during the previous administration. I hope they take it off, but Black Lives Matter was labeled as a terrorist group under the previous administration. And never any terror was done. However, now we have the Proud Boys. Canada has designated the Proud Boys as a terrorist entity. Does anyone want to respond to that?
When will America do the same?
Rick, you have any ideas? What you want to say? I saw your face telling us a whole story over there.
My face was like, I have nothing to say at all.
Are you aware of these two headlines?
No, these headlines are new to me, both of them. I did research about Black Lives Matter, the group, the organization. I did some research on them, but I don't know anything about the Proud Boys. I don't know the difference between them or QAnon. I haven't had a chance to really research.
Talk to Alex offline.
I'll say one thing. The Proud Boys are also a kind of a drinking club in addition to